In this video, we are going to talk about graphing any linear equation using table of values. The overall process is very simple. We are going to make a table, which we call table of values. The left column we call it X, the right column we call it Y. Usually, the left column is assigned to independent variable and the right column is assigned to the dependent variable. In our case, X is independent and Y is dependent. What you are going to do is that we are going to assign different values for X, evaluate the relationship, and find the values for Y. The values that we are assigning for X can be any values. For instance, in our case, we are going to assign values something like -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and then use the equation or relation to find the corresponding value for Y. The X value we call domain, and the Y values we call range. These are two very important names. Remember, X values are domain and Y values are range. When we find the pairs X and Y, then we are going to plot those values on the Cartesian coordinate system. And if we are dealing with a linear equation, then we are going to connect the points with the smooth line going through those points. So let's start doing a couple of examples here. The first example, we are supposed to graph the line y equal to x plus 3. Again, we are going to start with what we call a table of values, x, y, and we are going to use values, as I said, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Again, you can pick any values you want, not necessarily -2 to 2. Here, we are picking those values. Now, for each value of x, I'm going to find what is the value of y. For the first one, when x is -2, y is equal to 2 times -2 plus 3. 2 times -2 is -4, plus 3 gives me -1. The next one, -1, I'm going to solve it back in the equation. I get 2 times -1 plus 3. 2 times -1 is -2, plus 3 gives me 1. Next one is 0, so I get 2 times 0 plus 3, which is 0 plus 3, which is 3. And if you notice, just look at here, -1 to 1. The increment here is 2, because 1 minus -1 gives you 2. If you look here, the increment is 2 again, which is the same as 3 minus 1. This minus this one, or this minus this. The next one, I can either evaluate it again. When x is 2, I get y is 2 times 1 plus 3, which is 2, plus 3, which is 5. Again, the increment here, if you look here, 3 to 5 is 2, which is the same as 5 minus 3. So for the next one, I can either evaluate or I can say the next one guaranteed is going to be 5 plus 2 is 7. If you want to test that, let's evaluate it. 2 times 2 plus 3 gives us 4, plus 3 gives us 7. Now I have the pairs -2 and 2, -1 and 1, 0 and 3, 1 and 5, 2 and 7. So I can plot it. To do that one, I just draw x and y coordinate system here. x here, y here, and then I divide the x-axis into equal parts. This is origin here, then this is 1, 2, 3, -1, -2. Then the y values, they go from -1 to 7. So this is -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When x is -2, y is -1, which is this point here. When x is -1, y is 1, which is this point here. When x is 0, y is 3, which is this point here. When x is 1, y is 2, y is 5. Here, and when x 2, y is 7, which is around here. Now if we connect all these points together, we get a line looks like this. Now since our line goes to infinity on either end, I put an arrow here indicating that the line does not stop at the points indicated. In fact, it's going to infinity. The next problem says Adele drives 60 kilometers on the highway. Now we have to complete the following table of values. When time t is equal to 0, how much distance has Adele driven? Obviously it's 0. After 1 hour, we know that every 60 kilometers, every hour it drives 60 kilometers. After 1 hour is 60. After 2 hours is 60 times 2, which is 120. For 3 hours is 60 times 3, which is 180. For 4 is 60 times 4, which is 240. And for 5 is 60 times 5, which is equal to 300. Now again, if you look at the differences, 60 minus 0 is 60, 120 minus 60 is 60, 180 minus 120 is 60, 240 minus 180 is 60, 300 minus 60, 240 is 60. These are called first differences. We do the same thing with the time, with the x values. 1 minus 0 is 1, 2 minus 1 is 1, 3 minus 2 is 1, 4 minus 3 is 1, 5 minus 4 is 1. When the first differences, these, are the same, we say that this is a linear equation. So obviously, the distance of Adele from the origin is represented by a linear equation. For a linear equation, in general, the equation of the line is y is equal to mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Now the slope is this second differences divided by the first differences in x. So in our case, the slope m is 60 divided by 1, which is 60. The unit is 60 kilometers. Remember, the unit of this is kilometers, and the unit here is h, and we are dividing 60, which is with the unit of kilometers, divided by h, which is hours. So the slope is 60 kilometers per hour. The y-intercept is the initial value of the y's. This means that when x is equal to 0, whatever the y value is called the y-intercept. In our case, you can see that at time t equal to 0, the distance is 0. So this means that the y-intercept b is equal to 0. So our equation becomes y is equal to 60 x plus 0. Now, here we are not using y and x. Instead of y, we are using d for distance. And instead of x, we are going to use t for time. So, in our case, the equation which relates distance to time is d equal to 60t. The next part of the question says graph distance versus time for this relation. To do that one again, I draw my t, which is the x, and d, which is the y value. Now, our time starts from 0, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. And the distance goes from 0, 60, 120, and so forth. So let's assume this is 60 here, 120, 180, 240, and 300. When time is 0, the distance was 0. So this is here. When time is 1 hour, the distance is 60, which goes here. When time is 2 is 120, which goes here. When time is 3 is 180, which goes here. Remember, this is 180 here, and this is 3, so 3 and 180 is this point. When time is 4 is 240, which is going to be somewhere around here, and when it's 5 is 300, which is somewhere around here. Connect these points together. Again, having the arrows indicates that this is a linear relationship, and as before, the equation is distance d is equal to 60t, which is the time. In the next example, we have a graph as shown here, and we have to answer a few questions here. The first graph and the first question is, what is the balance that the account starts with? The balance initially is going to be this much here, this point, which means that the balance is going to be 0. So it's $0. The next question is asking is that, is the balance increasing or decreasing? We can see that the balance here, the values are positive and going up, so they are increasing. So we say it is increasing. Now the next question says, how much is it increasing in this case per week? To do that one, if you look at the graph, it's better after 1 week here, you can see the balance is here, which is $200. So we can say, because it wants per week, we can say that it is $200 per week, which is increasing yet. Now the next one is, what is the algebraic rule, which is b equal to something. Okay, We know that our x value is really n here. This is what is represented here. What we need to do, as I said before, we have to find the slope and y-intercept. To find the slope, we need to find the rate of increase of the graph. You can see that every week the blood balance is increasing by $200. So we can say the slope which is M, is equal to $200. The y-intercept, which is B, is going to be 0 because this is the initial value of B, the balance. So B is 0. So I can say that B is the slope 200 times x here is n, plus y-intercept, which is 0. So it's 200n. So I can say it's 200n. Now the next part of the question says after 12 weeks there will be, so I'm going to use the equation we found here. So B is going to be 200 times 12, which is $2,400. So it's 2,400 here. Now let's do the same thing for this graph now. First of all, the balance starts here initially, which is $500. So initial value is 500 here. Now you can see that the balance is decreasing. So I'm going to say decreasing. By how much per week? You can see that initially is 500, then after 1 week it goes to 400. So you can see that it decreases by $100 per week. Now it asks you to write the algebraic rule. Because our slope is $100, but it's decreasing, the sign is negative. So the slope here, is negative 100. Remember, the line is tilting to the right, and it's a negative slope. Now the y-intercept is the initial value. You can see the initial value is 500, so B is 500. Now this means that B is going to be equal to negative 100. We are using n to represent x, so it's 100n plus 500. Now we can test our equation. If n is equal to 0, this equation gives us 500. When n is equal to 1 after 1 week, the equation has to give us 400. So negative 100 times 1 is negative 100 plus 500 is 400, which is correct. Now it says after 12 weeks. So I'm going to evaluate B, negative 100 times 12 plus 500. Now negative 100 times 12 is negative 1200 plus 500 is going to give me negative 700. So this means that after 12 weeks I do not owe anything because the value becomes negative here.